Not yet. Yes.
Yeah.
We're back again.
Hello.
So you mentioned about diversity and number of people actually who did apply to the open application process of the biennial, which was like 1.5 years ago, I guess. And I know that it was a tough process for you, of course. How many people applied? How many projects, let's say?
We had around 800 submissions from, every corner of the world. And it wasn't. The ICASAV was very committed to an open call to really spread the word quite globally. I've never worked with an open call before. That's not typically how we curate. Although when you do exhibitions, you do send out the word that you're looking for projects, maybe to your friends, designers, the community, experts. So in that way, through word of mouth, through kind of sourcing who are some of the most interesting talents, and people out there. So in a way, you do work with this kind of open call method, but never one that has generated 800 submissions. People sending things in from far-flung corners of the world, and that was it was at the once very exciting, but also very overwhelming. And Meredith and I spent a long time going through the projects, trying to figure out, many of the people we didn't know. Many of the projects were going to be new commissions, which I think is very important. Another thing why biennials are important, because they are a possibility to do projects that test things, to have, that, and also to do projects that potentially will fail. And they can be quite experimental, but, actually we're seeing many of the projects for the first time along with you guys, obviously being realised at the biennial. But the open call was really interesting. I think it was very useful as actually in terms of our curatorial approach, because Meredith and I had to do a lot of work writing the brief and really being very pointed in terms of what the frame of the biennial was going to be in its theme, and then kind of what we were looking for. And how broad do you be? How narrow do you define the concept? And we had no idea how people were going to respond. And also we called for something that was quite strong. Rethinking the design manifesto. That's no small task. So we were really pleased and surprised. And it was also exciting to get projects from really people that we'd never known before, as well as people that obviously we did know. And also we set up, we have a local advisory, which includes you guys, and an international advisory, and that helped us in terms of, when we weren't sure who someone was but we were interested in their project. Obviously we had a few people that we could call on to help us navigate some of that. But it did mean that we had a real wealth of projects. And then the different departments that the biennial is framed around, the broadcast department that we're sitting in, which is very important, obviously, to the idea of the manifesto, because the way that manifestos have been typically circulated and distributed through mass media, we wanted to kind of use our own. Can a manifesto be on a blog? Can it be tweeted? Can it be through a live radio show? And then the other departments, the personal department, the resource department, norms and standards, and then civic relations. Obviously, the projects start with those that are much more about the personal issues, identity, health, well-being, questioning relationships between masculinity and femininity, like very essential things, questioning ideas about beauty. No small concepts, but very subjective ideas. As you move through the biennial, the projects grow in scope and scale and become, the largest projects are about civic space and collective action. So the call for ideas, I think, was a very important part of this project in terms of getting things that we potentially would not have been able to find or people would not have known about.
And to plant some seeds ourselves as well, because we were dealing with this very big word, the manifesto, and in that call for ideas, we tried to plant so many other ideas so that people would find themselves in that call. And I think that also came from the first Talk to Us sessions we did here in Istanbul.
Actually, that process was quite interesting.
But if you define the biennial as a testing platform, this open calls, this advisory board, this informal advisory board fits very well. Maybe even we are telling about the contract, and we say that it's an experimental process, and we will see after 6 weeks.
Yeah, well, it's like an accumulative process too.
Process.
With the
There's so
talk
many
to us
projects
sessions.
where you could say, we will see,
Definitely.
we will
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
we will see, and that's
So
exciting.
it's also
But it keeps the biennial fresh. You know, it's
And alive.
Yeah, it's alive,
It
yeah.
feels that it's alive.
and also with the hub space, you know, you can, you know, the panel is free, so you can revisit whenever you want to, or even for just spending time, you can come
Come for
here.
a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and then to see the project, how they evolved, you know, how did it change, etc., etc. So 6 weeks is a quite a good time. For example, we also made this, you know, announcement that, you know, this room also will change during the 6 weeks, filled with, you know, printouts and everything. So, you know, it is a constant project, actually, a constant experiment, let's say, which will last like 6 weeks. So, you know, maybe it will be interesting for the people who are right now watching, because, you know, normally you don't have some kind of idea about the background process of any kind of exhibition, right? But, you know, it had started 1.5 years ago with meetings and everything, and then there's this, I guess, this, you know, really wide range advisory board, etc. This almost 800 applications, etc., etc. So, and, you know, right now we do have the biennial, the exhibition itself, but, you know, with the beginning of it, it's not the end at the same time. It's, you know, the beginning only a part of it. So it will last, and maybe at the end of it, you know, with all work, you know, that cumulative work, it will extend its, you know, I don't know.
For example, yesterday some people came to me and say, "Okay, it's done. Congratulations." And no, it's just
the beginning. I know.
That goes back to your first question, though, in terms of what is a design biennial. And from the beginning, we felt we both have backgrounds in museums and have worked on exhibitions that maybe are more of aesthetic display with a lot of information and really rich and dense. But we wanted to do something completely new for ourselves at the biennial, something that is alive and has this kind of changing character. So we also have the opportunity to come back at the end, which we really wanted to do. So the first week of December, we're coming back to bring all the people together that were part of that first conversation and to check in and to see, you know, what worked, what didn't work. You know, do they find the ideas from those first conversations in the biennial? When we came in the summer last year, we felt that the design scene had a lot of energy, but was also really searching for alternatives. And we heard some of those words come out, and those are the words that went into the call for ideas, and that also became kind of an international magnet towards this place. So we want to see, you know, a year later, what are people thinking now, and what we can project into the future for the biennial.
So, you know, my last question will be that, so, you know, right now you have a 1.5 year experience in the design field, at least in Turkey, so you met lots of people, and through all these discussions, you have, I guess, some kind of insight. How do you think, you know, what is your feelings, maybe, you know, not predictions, but, you know, any kind of, you know, it won't be a question, but some kind of, you know, open thing that I just direct to you. You know, what do you think about the environment? How do you see the near future, maybe, or what kind of utopian future for this era do you have in your mind? So,
I think it's up for grabs.
Okay.
I think it's up for grabs. I think it's still being defined, but I think that's a positive thing. There feels like there's a lot of energy. I mean, I know we've said this a lot, but Meredith and I, when we've set up the Talk to Us sessions, which were these big roundtable discussions where we brought together architects and designers, asking you all, what do you think are the critical issues in design? And you came back with, you know, concepts like, you know, collective action, or live-work balance, or, you know, how to live in a healthy city, or how to have a healthy city. You know, some of the concepts that then became part of the biennial. I think we're all, you know, thinking about these things and thinking how design can have the potential to make change and have agency. And we were just so impressed with the level of critical thinking here, obviously the generosity and open-mindedness to be a part of those first discussions when no one knew what direction we were going to take, including ourselves. And we were still trying to, you know, find a concept and a topic that would resonate here as much as internationally. But I think also what's so interesting is there seems to be a generation of designers which are quite reflective of the biennial. very interdisciplinary, but also the methods and approaches, because many people have been trained abroad or here in different types of departments, interaction design, or sort of design thinking, or very kind of going to Eindhoven and sort of doing projects that are much more about mankind and design, and or going to other schools around the world where approaches are quite different. So when you come back to Turkey, I think it's going to be interesting to see how designers here apply that knowledge in very diverse ways, and how you can have a very multiplicitous response to design.
Doğru. Birazdan sizi
Birazdan
alsak.
sizi alacağız.
Evet.
Evet.
Şu an canlı bir yayın yapıyoruz da.
Gerçekten gelecek hiçbir şey.
Tamam. Çok güzel. Görüşürüz birazdan.
65'ten bunun işine ben
Çok iyi.
hadi bakalım daha neler göreceğiz.
Bizim minik bir yayınımız var. Onu bitirelim, sonra
Join us
size
on
şey yapalım mı? Teşekkürler. So this is
what's going on.
She's going to make the translation for the next session of the seminar. So she was looking for the room. So as we mentioned that our room is open to anyone who is visiting. So we're
having impromptu visitors.
Definitely. So you can also be a part of it. So you were mentioning about how the designers from the different parts of the world has the different type of approach come here and produce something.
And
No,
for
I think
us to
it's
be open to that. I think that was what was really exciting to be here, is you kind of question all of your assumptions and question all of your expectations, and be open to the possibility that there are other ways of doing things. And we felt that, I think, in every aspect of the process.
I also think, as much as, obviously we feel quite positive and energized by the community, but I do think it's a very challenging time to be a designer, because the responsibility is huge. You have to do so many things and tackle really challenging issues. But I'd love to hear, what do you think about design in Istanbul and where it's headed?
I don't know it exactly, but it's for sure it's a vibrant community and environment. As you know, we are not only in Istanbul, but with the initiatives that we are in, we also travel a lot in the whole country. So if you, for example, take the field of design in terms of traditional approaches, there is this client comes to you, you design something, etc., etc. I don't know, maybe it's much more difficult to take part in that field of, let's say, practice. But if you are open to, as you mentioned, for example, open to other possibilities, even the possibilities that you cannot imagine by yourself, by only sitting in an office, in a room, etc., etc., then it just brings some kind of really wide perspective in front of you. So you have to also force yourself, question your abilities, and also question your approaches, and then you get some kind of incredible wide range of field of action. So not only affect your practice, but also people who are living in those areas, etc. So if there will be enough people who are enough critically question the field in this time, in this country, then I think it will bring much more, interesting discussions on table to make it much more wide open. This is how I see the field of design, in terms of Turkey. Of course, it is maybe quite similar right now in this socio-economical, political context, almost everywhere around the world.
That's what I was going to just add. I think that something that we really wanted to make clear was, although we were situating it in Istanbul, in Istanbul and in Turkey, and with large percentage of the biennial is projects by Turkish designers, we wanted them also to situate it within an international context, so that you see the ways that people are working here are the ways that others are striving to work too, and finding it as difficult, and trying to kind of break down the barriers or open up, the types of practice they can do. So really, I think it is those projects might be situated here, but they have resonance in terms of the approach, with projects elsewhere. So we wanted people here to sort of see themselves in other projects elsewhere or in other practices, the way that other people were practicing.
Actually, I think nowadays it's a breakdown for all the design practice, because now we're on the edge and a lot of new generation and a lot of new young designers on the field, but still the former generation try to keep their positions. And it creates the clash. For example, I think the idea of architecture is also changing. Maybe 10 years ago, if you don't have any building, you're not an architect. But nowadays, people see there's other ways to do an architecture. There are other ways to do design.
Yeah. In Turkey, it was like a taboo.
Yeah, in Turkey, it was like a taboo.
If you don't have some kind of constructed works, then you're nothing or something like that. Because all people will think that this is the only actual proof that you can do something or bring something new or interesting on the table in terms of the practice. But right now it is changing because right now there are people who are trying to create their own era of action rather than trying to take part of an existing structure or in the market, etc. So they just push things. So it's a good thing. Of course, it creates lots of clash in between.
I think also it's interesting because it's not about the reason is not the economic crisis or something like that. The reason is cultural crisis.
There'll be an interesting panel discussion coming up in a couple weeks that maybe you know about already, but for those watching who maybe don't know, that Ezra Akcan will be here in a couple weeks, and she'll be talking about her contribution to the catalog, which was to look back at architectural manifestos in Turkey and to translate some experts into English for the first time. So I think that will be a really amazing discussion to also pull forward some documents from the past that weren't called manifestos, but could be conceived in that way.
I think it will be with Cengiz Bektaş and Uğur Tanyeli.
So it will be quite interesting thing.
And especially looking at a time like the 60s and 70s and even further back, historically, where paper architecture was again something that was very, very important, and architects really paved the way for those kinds of visionary plans and ideas. So I think that'd be great. I mean, and yes, the catalogue. We should plug the catalogue. Ezra Akcan has an amazing. She's an architectural historian. She has a fantastic essay and we have translated those manifestos for the first time.
So check out the schedule of the Biennale.
Yes.
So it's not only an exhibition, and we can assure you that's for sure. And check out, of course, the catalog. And thank you, all of you, for creating this board for all of us. Because for me that will be quite an experience at the end, and I'm so curious. What will you think when you will come back?
Yeah, I can't wait.
So,
I'm going to be tuning in
Yeah.
all the way along. So we can't wait to hear people's feedback, and that's the most important thing, hearing what people think and how the projects resonate with them.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.